It's that time of the week. That's right. Monday evening, Signals Live. Answering all of your questions with probably some errors, but trying my best nonetheless. Howdy, everybody. That was tonight's intro, so I hope that was enjoyable. I made that just for you. You see how simple that is? Some horns, some synthesizers, a really bad drum part, and boom, you're writing music from like 50 years ago. So let's get this muted first before anything else catastrophic happens. Where is this? Hi. Good evening. Hello. It's good to see everybody. Happy December 7th to all of you. I'm looking in the chat here, and I see some very familiar names. Video Spell Music, Jared, Gary Hooker, Tau Zero, John Hopkins, Davy Jones, Eric, Kevin Phoenix, Eric Stark, Peter Wolf, Jared, Luther. Awesome. Hey, everybody. Glad you liked the intro. Yeah. I just want to immediately start off by just that celebration, by the way, this little fanfare. I was initially just going to do a fanfare, this thing. This is my celebration. This is me. Because the course is done. I have officially finished the course. I've never spent as much work on anything in my entire life ever as I did on this course. It's 45 different videos. They're linearly taught. It took me my entire teaching career to be able to put together something like this, to be able to put it together in the right order, in a way that makes sense, in a way that I know when a student is done with it, they're going to be like, I get music. I understand music. If they go through all the resources, I'm just going to get a little excited here and just kind of share with you what's going on with the course and what it's going to look like. So let's see here. For example, where did my PDFs go? Okay, well, here's all the videos, for example. You can see there's going to be 45 different lessons like this in different format. And then additionally, these are going to be the charts you're going to be getting with everything, stuff like this. So with every single lesson, right? So you take the first lesson, boom, there's a chart for the first lesson. It basically recaps the entire thing here for you. You're done with that, you take the second lesson. By the way, there's worksheets for the first lesson. That's a whole different PDF. Second lesson, you've got this instant quick guide. You know, to me, this is like a quick reference guide where, like a cheat sheet, right? If you had to take a test, this is the only thing you would need to bring in there with you for the test in order to pass the test. And this goes through all 45 lessons. There's only 1 or 2 lessons that do not have a chart. So you can see there's a nice little grayscale version of the ultimate modal poster. Yeah, I'm telling you, I mean, I really think this is like the best thing I've ever done. This is the greatest thing that I can create as a teacher, as an educator, to have the audio the way I want it, to have the video the way I want it, to have the lessons in the way that I want it. The only element now is the online portion of it, making sure that it functions as an online course, you know, that you can click the thing and it all works. It doesn't bug out. So one thing I'm going to ask you right now, I'll bring it up in the post as soon as this is available, is, you know, let me know if there's any problems. I really want to make sure that it goes smoothly for everybody. So I am hoping, the hope is that it's going to be available tomorrow. Okay. Now, I dumped basically everything on my poor web guy at the last minute. And so, you know, like there's a chance that it might be done tomorrow. If not, I'm very, very confident it'll be done the following day. So that would be the 9th. But I cannot stress this enough, how excited I am for you guys to get this, because like I really think today's questions, some of the questions, like 5 or 6 of the questions here would not have been asked if you had taken my course, because you would have already understood at least, you know, the parts of the answers I'm already going to give you. So I really think it's going to hit almost every, you know, aspect of a musician. It is taught on guitar. Okay. So, you know, even if you're not a guitar player, if you've got a guitar laying around, it's enough. Even if you're not good at the instrument, that's enough to go through the course. We're learning music. We're learning theory. We're learning composition, we're learning songwriting, structure. You don't have to be good at this instrument in order to do that. There's plenty of bad guitar players out there making great music. So it's just, this is the lens through which we're viewing music theory for. So yes, it's for, Glenn is just asking, is this for guitar players or all musicians? It is for guitar players because, you know, that's what the instrument I'm at, but you don't have to be good. You just have to, you know the very basics of it. And even if you didn't own a guitar, only about 20% of the course is like directly for guitar players. And that's stuff like pentatonic shapes. That's something that's like unique to the guitarist. Or the way I taught arpeggios and chord tone soloing is kind of unique, and all the shapes that we talk about. But I'd say only about 20% of it is like guitar only. But even then, you know, if I played piano and I watched this entire course, I think there would only be a small portion of it that I just wanted to tune out to. So, John Hopkins is saying there's a lot of content. I hope everybody thinks so. I hope it's worth it. I hope everybody enjoys it. I hope, I just hope it's, by the time you're done, you think it's worth your time and effort. And I hope for the general public who's going to have to pay full price, the full price is going to be $270. I hope they think it's totally worth it, because I'm comparing it to signing up for real lessons. If you signed up for lessons to get this content, I would expect it to take 6 months of private lessons. And that's going to cost a lot of money. So I'm comparing it to that. If you can find an instructor that can teach this kind of stuff, which is kind of hard. So I'm looking forward to you all getting it. So we are going to begin. All right. We're going to begin today's live stream and start answering some of these questions. We have a lot of great questions here. I'm really excited to answer them. First is Lusk Luther, who is already in the chat. So Luther Lusk, Lusk Luther, Luther Lusk, one or the other. We'll just call you LL. Asked a few questions. What are the skills one must possess or know if the goal is to make music close to or similar to Pink Floyd or the Dreamy Chords video you made? I'd say if you want to make music similar to Pink Floyd as a guitar player, you're going to need some chops. You know, David Gilmour played some pretty difficult solos from that point of view. You know, they were very bendy, slidey, difficult solos, and there's a lot of feel in there. It just takes lots and lots of years of playing this instrument to get those, those bends really juiced out of things. So it's going to take a lot of work from the practicing the guitar department, but to write it, I don't think it's that complicated. You know, when I think of all the progressive rock bands, and I would classify Pink Floyd as a progressive rock band in some genre, in some sense, I would say Pink Floyd's the easiest, to analyze for the most part. It might be the jazziest, when the jazz stuff kind of comes around, there's a lot of chords in there that get pretty weird, but the classic Pink Floyd sound is just one in a, minor one and major four. You can go so far with that. So here's an E minor, right? E minor, and then the major four. A major. I mean, just doing these. Right, that gives you kind of that Pink Floydian sound, that minor one to major four, just classic, kind of thing. So I would say the skills to answer, more directly. It helps if you played with a band, but grooving with a band. When I think of Pink Floyd, I think of groove, and I think of, the skills I picked up with playing with a band and those slow jams. So let's put it this way. The easiest thing you could do is analyze some Pink Floyd songs, break it down to its roots, reverse engineer it, figure out why it feels that certain way, and try to just recreate it. Try to rip it off 100%, but just make a little few adjustments. And you'll see what you failed at. You'll see, oh, my bass part really sucked. Well, you got to work on writing better bass parts. Or you might realize that, there was no structure. The structure didn't make sense. Well, it's something to work on. But don't judge the production value. Unless you're working on being a producer, don't worry so much on the production value at all. I'm going to take a peek back during the chat here. I'll try to keep up with it as we're going through the live stream, as opposed to just answering everything at the end. So, Gustavo, that's a new name in here. I found your channel about a month ago. It is awesome. Joined the Patreon a few days ago. Thank you for the content. Well, thank you for joining up, Gustavo, and thank you for joining us. We're glad to have you here. These are fun little sessions. Eventually, we'll do these more often, and I am so excited for the future. Now that this course is done, now that this is not hanging over my head, I'm really looking forward to seeing what next year can bring around. So, Fudge Sauce is saying, I don't have a guitar, but I have the bottom four strings of a guitar. Yeah, so Fudge Sauce, if you're on the bass, I would say most of this is going to apply to you. I'd say since I was talking guitar stuff, I say only 20% is going to apply if you don't play guitar. Well, you've got 2/3 of a guitar. Literally, everything I'm teaching is going to apply. So you're going to only have to throw away, what would that be, 7%, 2/3% or something like that. So I think most of it would apply there for you, Fudge. How important is tone, Luther is saying, in this context? It's pretty stinking important. Like, if you want to sound like Pink Floyd, then yeah, you're going to want to emulate those Pink Floyd tones. But fortunately, those are so easy. People there's entire, bulletin boards online dedicated to mimicking David Gilmour's guitar tone. I'm not the guy to talk to about that. I've never been, into that side of things. I emulate it as best as I can using the skills I have. But that stuff has been documented. You can find out what pickups he used at this concert to get that sound. It's all out there if that's what you're trying to do. I think that's the easy part, because that's all like, here, buy this instrument, plug it into this amplifier, boom. I think the harder thing is developing the skills to make the entire composition. The other part of your questions, Luther, you were asking, how and when will my solos sound good and melodic and not like patterns? I can play major, minor, diatonic, pentatonic, and some mode patterns on the entire fretboard. Any exercises you suggest, or is it strictly depending on chord targeting? If so, is all of a chord targeting random improvisation, or do you write them and then play? Or you write to hit them and play? So this is one of the questions that is like very accurately and hopefully thoroughly described in my lessons on arpeggios and chord tone soloing. I would say to make your solos melodic and good, yeah, most of it is going to be about being aware of your chord tones, being highlighting those chord tones, being able to approach them from interesting ways. And then your licks, your exercises, all that crap that you've practiced for thousands of hours that never knew how to use, those can now be like, they have a role to play because you can apply them to those chord tones. You know how these licks are outlining chord tones, or you can end them on chord tones. So if you're just playing licks, it doesn't usually sound good. They have to make sense. They have to have a function. They have to have, meaning. And that's what happens when you're soloing with the chord tones. So it's going to be, in my opinion, it's a matter of finding those chord tones within the shapes you already know. And that's kind of one of the overarching themes throughout the course, is don't just learn scales and don't just learn shapes. Understand how these shapes generate intervals. Understand how these shapes generate, the notes you need to know. And then finding those chord tones within those shapes, you can basically work anywhere on your guitar and not have to think about A's and B's and stuff like that. So that would be, I would think you're on the right path there when you start asking about chord tones. I do think that's going to be the answer, but it's a very long road to get there. You're also asking how to get or select a mode or scale and chords to your song after writing the lyrics, assuming the lyrics have a story and the story has a meaning or feel when you can play all the songs in different scales. I think this is an easy one. If I already have lyrics, then it's like, well, I'm basically being told what kind of scale I need to use. If I've got lyrics and a vision too, so let's say my lyrics are about walking down some desolate landscape and, there's dust blowing in the winds, there's not a person in sight, and that's what my lyrics are describing. Well, what scale isn't that? Classroom, major, right? Major has nothing to do with that. So it throws that one out of the picture. I start thinking about minor. I start thinking about Phrygian. Let's get that picture in your head, right? That dusty road, right? I definitely hear like a root and a minor third. And you could even, that flat too. It was a long and dusty road. Not a soul in sight. Right? That to me is like screaming out Phrygian chords, Phrygian things, because I have a vision, right? And I've already associated all these visions with all these modes. You could do major if you're trying to write some sarcastic or like witty or meta, there's a time for that. If you want to think about why that might be appropriate, like kind of like a punch drunk song, like life has been so terrible for you that you've just like, all right, I'm lost and lonely, and it's a happy song about like having a terrible day. That's a funny thing, and that would be a funny way to approach it. But if you have the vision ahead of time, and if you've kind of plugged all these things with emotions, then you're going to be in pretty good shape. So let's move on. Thank you for the questions, Luther. Wybrit is next, and Wybrit's thanking me for the streams, and I say thank you for joining them, Wybrit. Wybrit is practicing arpeggios right now, 4-note arpeggios, natural, harmonic, and melodic scales. Following the circle of fourths, I walk up the neck in one key, down the fourth of that key, up the fourth of the last key, and so on. And then you do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around in all 12 keys. It can be quite mechanical, so I wonder, according to you, what mindset should I have when I practice this in order to get the most out of the exercise? So, Wybrit, this is intense stuff. If you're doing exercises like that, good for you. I want to stress, though, once you've gotten the hang of that exercise, once it's not taxing, and once you can do it at a medium pace, a moderate tempo, I really suggest you find a new exercise, or just stop practicing it to a metronome and learn to apply it. Find out, how can I turn this into a piece of music? How can I modify this for a different kind of arpeggio? How can I do this with a different rhythmic cycle? If you're doing it to a metronome, try doing it 3 notes per beat instead of 4 notes per beat and see how that offsets the patterns. But I do think there's really quickly, you run into diminishing returns, not the diminishing chord, but the diminishing returns of practicing an exercise. Exercises are great to learn. I cannot stress how much of a difference it made to get those under my belt, but spending too much time on them is really missing the point. They're not supposed to be done over and over again. It's like, okay, you checked the box. You developed it to 80%. Now, if you spend 100 more hours on it, you're only going to develop it to 85%. And if you spend 100 more, you're only going to develop it to 90%. So like, check it at 80% and then go on to your next exercise. Go on to your next thing and, try to apply what you've already learned. But it's too easy to just think like, oh, I need to get better at this one thing. I've learned it's better to spread out your practice, get 80% perfect at everything, and then move on. And a lot of times you'll go back to that exercise later on and you'll realize that you've improved an extra 5 or 10% just because you've strengthened other skills that go along with it. So I hope it's kind of general what I'm telling you there, but it is advice. I see a lot of players get too caught up in exercises. And I've learned a ton of them, but you really got to move past them. They're just a means to the end. They are not the end themselves. So Wybrit is also saying, one area that I need to improve, and which I notice when I play in the band, is my phrasing and timing when playing a solo. I know this is a huge one for guitar players. If it's not a solo that I've learned in advance, or I get lost during the soloing, I get more focused on the scale than the groove, so the result may not be sounding too good. And I always tend to rely on that same basic pentatonic minor box. The thing is, when I'm sitting by myself improvising to a backing track, I'm much more confident and make use of the entire neck and various techniques, but with some mistakes and bad timing here and there. But there I can afford it since I am playing alone, I guess. What should I focus on if I want to strengthen my confidence when playing solo in the band? So I'm going to give you my answer for this, Wybrit, because I have the same problems. All right, I'm not too proud of my improvisation skills. I get into a lot of trouble when I'm improvising because I keep going for it. I keep swinging, and when you keep swinging, a ball's coming your way, you're going to miss a lot of them. And since my mind isn't completely translated on my guitar, I'm not a huge, I'm much bigger. I'm more confident in my composition skills than my improvising skills. So because of that, I've learned to play it safe. This is my number one rule when you're playing with other musicians. This is my rule: do no harm. This is your Hippocratic oath as a musician. You are not allowed to make it bad, okay? No matter what you do. I don't care if you don't have to make it great. You don't have to play a great solo. You don't have to impress people. You don't have to go, it was incredible, his fingers were smoking and it melted the guitar. You just don't do harm. Don't F it up, all right? Just don't mess it up, seriously. And that's a simple thing to do with your pentatonic box. I wouldn't take shame in that. But it's also simple if you focus on rhythm. If you really, and this is a hard thing to do, it's an easy thing for me to tell you, but if you can just write it on your hand, tattoo it on something, so you're constantly reminded, just stay with the beat, stay in the pocket. That's doing no harm. That means that no matter what you do, if you're in that little pentatonic box, you're doing it on time. And unless you really hit a bad chord tone, which is hard in pentatonics, you're going to be with people, and a lot of good solos are rhythmic. It's the rhythm that takes it. So even just by focusing on saying, I'm only going to play with just by focusing on timing and then moving your finger in a scale, you start sounding better than just going up and down because you're conscious. You're being mindful of what you're playing. This is a huge topic. This is an extremely difficult thing to do. It is one of those holy grails for a musician, is to be mindful while you're listening, to be conscious of what you're doing, listening while you're playing. Very hard because your brain is 90% thinking, oh, I'm in pentatonic. Oh, here comes the C. Oh, I want to do the, oh, we're in front. Instead of being just listening. Imagine when you listen to a guitar player, right? You're not thinking about a million things. That's very, very, very difficult to do. And it's easier to do if you restrict yourself to a small little box, if you just focus on the rhythm. So I would not get too, don't beat yourself up if you're keeping things small, and do really focus on that. It's my favorite thing to do. When I'm improvising with my favorite musicians, Moog Lee, you might have seen his stuff on YouTube, and Jeff Beardstank, the drummer, I like to stay in the pocket. I really do, because I know it's going to sound good. Then I can't get in, I can't resist. I start trying to shred, and then I screw something up, and it gets too bad, and I got to go back to my safe zone. And that's fun. I'm just having fun. That's all. And every time you do that, you learn a little bit. So hope that helps, Wybrit. Thank you for the question. Now, Wolfie's saying, my question may be a strange one, and he had a specific question on a specific song. I really want you all to listen to this. I'm not going to play it for you here. I don't think it's legal for me to be playing other people's music here on a private live stream. And I respect the artist, and I want to compliment how epic and cinematic this track is. If you love exotic modes, you're going to love this song. This song is called Mirth Deep, Murthdeep, and the song, the band is called Arcanavoid. It's on SoundCloud. Wonderful piece, really cool stuff, the kind of stuff that I would love to make for a movie. And Wolfie's question, basically, Wolfie, I'd like to just say you kind of nailed it, but I'm going to just simplify it. To just walk through, let's walk through the basic idea here, okay? The song is basically in C minor, all right? Let me see if I can get a different tone here that's not so distorted. By the way, I finally bought a guitar plugin for the first time ever. I bought the Plini guitar tones, and I love them. They are just dreamy and magnificent. And by the way, I have to say, Plini's new album, I'm going to type this in the chat in case you don't know about Plini, and you know how to spell it now. Plini's new album is maybe one of the greatest compositions I've heard in my entire life. It is top tier A+++ music. It is humbling. It brought me to my knees. It is the kind of stuff that I would sell my soul to be able to compose something like that. It is really, really, really inspiring. So I highly encourage. I don't do a lot of recommended listening. Everybody's got their own flavor. But I don't know how anyone who likes music can not like this new Plini album. So just type in new Plini album. I already forgot the name of it. It's Impulses. It's absolutely incredible. I only listened to it once today. I heard it for the first time, and it killed me. It's the first music I listened to in like 2 months, because I'm not joking. I have literally been in a different dimension of work. I've been pulling like 12-hour days to get this course done. So listening to music and to listen to that as a welcome back to reality was remarkable. So I highly suggest it. So anyways, what we're going to listen to is, Impulse Voices. Thank you, John Hopkins. So here's a C minor chord, all right? And then we've got a G sharp major, and then like an F minor, and then a G major, right? Really, harmonic minor-y stuff. All these chords come from C harmonic minor, right? F minor, sorry. And if you imagine the scale on top of that, right? And then what they end up doing is hanging out on the 5 chord. The 5 chord is G major. Now, if we stay in C harmonic minor, right? But if we but we hang out on the 5th chord, which is G, then we get Phrygian dominant. Right? Really cool stuff, if you ask me. And that's what they do. They kind of hang out on 5 for so long that it becomes the tonal center, but we're still kind of in C harmonic minor. But then here's the really cool change that Wolfie was asking about. It goes back to C minor, and then you get this on the melody. And that melody has an F sharp in it, which is a tritone. And there's no tritone in C harmonic minor. So basically what happens here, he was asking, in that moment, is it bringing in Dorian sharp 4? And if you figure out Dorian sharp 4, if you know, is the 4th mode of harmonic minor. So it could be thought of, Wolfie, I don't want to get this could be a really complicated way to say it. Here's the way I judge it. I say everything is in C harmonic minor. That's all this piece is. It's C harmonic minor for that first part. When we got back to that C minor and that awesome F sharp came in, all it was an awesome F sharp. That's all I'm seeing it as. It is a color tone. And if you are familiar with all the different color tones and the effects they have and the relationships that they have, then you'll know that the sharp 4 is wonderful, especially as it bumps up against that tritone. We hear it in Hungarian minor. So if all of a sudden it played that, I wouldn't say, oh, did we shift into Hungarian minor? I say we kind of used, we used color tones, because I can describe 95% of this by saying C harmonic minor. So that's what I'm going to call it. Very rarely, when you get into cool music, is it all one thing. So it's easy for me to say C harmonic minor, even though asterisk, there's other stuff in there, especially that sharp 4. And I love that sharp 4. I mean, I just think it's wonderful. Also, the 4th mode of harmonic minor is worth playing around in. I was playing around with it in anticipation for this lesson after you made this question, and I realized it is the song that came up into my head is the song from Aladdin, the Arabian Nights. So the Aladdin song, Arabian Nights, is all the fourth mode of harmonic. Well, not the whole thing. I know it's a brilliant composition. I listened to it afterwards. There's some real cool usage of chords of that fourth mode of harmonic minor, and it made me think, like, what a incredible composition. Disney has a tendency to do that, to just write mind-blowingly good compositions. So Luther's asking about the guitar plugin, and John Hopkins is correct. Yes, it is the Plini Neural FX plugin. So Neural FX. And this is just one of the presets that I'm playing right here. I mean, that sounds awesome to me, and it's just, one of the preset patches here. So, cool stuff. All right, so that answers that to my best of my knowledge here, Wolfie. I think you nailed it, though. I really think you got everything just with that right. So congratulations. I don't even criticize anything about it. I would just describe it as C harmonic minor. Oh, and you even got the thing that Hungarian minor. But I wouldn't call it a modulation. I just say, like, we were, when the C minor came back, we just decided to have cool stuff going on with that C minor. That's all, and we broke the key. Yeah, we did break the key, but that's what we do, we break keys. So keys, sometimes only, happen for limited periods of time. So, Jared Yelton here. I'm working on memorizing the intervals audibly and under the fingers. Good. Example, if you play the first octave of the A major scale with the A on the 5th fret, I think of it as the Ionian pattern, so 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9, 6, 7. Those intervals are easy to identify since they're major. Absolutely. 1, 2, 3 on the 6th string, 4, 5, 6 on the 5th string, and 7 on the octave on the 4th string. Good. Now, if we switch to A minor on the 5th fret, I think of that as the Aeolian pattern, 5, 7, 8. Very good. So do I. The differences from major pattern are that we flat the 3rd, 6th, and 7th notes. Absolutely correct. Good so far. The question and the confusion, I'm not sure what the interval to call the C. Is it the 3rd interval in minor, a flat 3rd? Is it the 3rd? It's the 3rd note, but it seems wrong to call it a 3rd since C sharp is the 3rd. In other words, I fully realize that this is a minor 3rd, but that's in comparison to major. If I ignore the comparison since it's the 3rd note of the scale, do we ever just call it the 3rd of the current minor key? All right, Jared, great question. Let's get this cleared up. Hopefully this one's going to be pretty easy. I think you're going to get this. But it's still stupid because music theory is really silly. Thirds. When somebody says, like, what is a third? There's actually two kinds of thirds. There's minor thirds and major thirds. Those are both thirds, right? Like, it's a distance of 3 frets and a distance of 4 frets, a major third and a minor third. Those are the different kinds of thirds. When we talk about harmonizing in thirds, that means sometimes it's a major third, sometimes it's a minor third. It doesn't mean we always harmonize in major thirds. So, there's two different kinds of thirds, major third and minor third. But 9 times out of 10, when somebody says play me a third, they mean major third. Like, that's what third kind of, like when I say play me a G, I mean G major, right? I don't mean the G minor chord when I say play a G chord. So by default, third kind of refers to major third. So here's what I would say. What is the third of the A major scale? There was only one answer to this. The only answer is C sharp. The third of A is C sharp. If I said, what is the third of the A minor scale, it would be correct to say C, because it is the third. It just happens to be a minor third. If you say, what is C when I'm in A, the answer is it's the flat third. That's like that's the distance. The scale degree is a flat third. Every scale degree is rooted off of is compared to the major scale. So even though I'm in A minor, so let's say I'm in A minor, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the note C is still a flat third, but it's just the third of my A minor scale, right? So that's confusing. I understand that that's confusing, but basically every single interval will default back to the major scale. You're always referring things to the major scale. And I look down here at the site and I'm seeing that Bob Kelly is pitching in here saying, yes, A minor would be the flat third, yes, and G would be referred to as the flat 7. So the C, the interval names reference the interval distance, true. And one thing I did try to explain in the course here is that the scale degree is just relative to my root, right? Relative to my root, C is my minor third. But the distance of a minor third it could be anywhere. Like the distance from D to F is my minor third. So I have a minor third between my fourth and my sixth. And that the idea of an interval and the idea of a scale degree are basically the same thing, but they're not too. So you do want to kind of know the difference between those two. So there's 2 lessons there that kind of really describe that between scale degrees and ear training the intervals. And hopefully it comes across clearly that yes, intervals and scale degrees are basically the same thing, but they're also not the same thing. If you get the one, you should get the other. But yeah, Bob Kelly cleared it up. Jared, I hope that helps. I hope that, yes, good. Awesome. Very good. I see you're saying it did clear things up. So yeah, Fudge Sauce is saying a minor third isn't named after the scale. That's true. A minor third is just a distance. It doesn't mean the third note of a minor scale. The minor third just refers to the distance of 3 frets. That's all. So, or 3 half steps. There is another system of interval naming out there, and that's when you get into diminished thirds and augmented thirds. I will never teach that system. I think it's garbage. I just really old. It's not applicable, and it's really confusing. And you get to have stupid conversations about, augmented unisons and stuff like that. I don't think that's fun. I really don't. I just think it's nerdy and unnecessary. So we're just going to stick to scale degrees and intervals. That's the stuff that actually matters this day. So Tyler is in the chat saying, I notice that switch between major and minor third sounds pretty cool. Yes, it does. I mean, if there's one thing I can just kind of rant on here really quick, is how long it took me to realize the possibilities of blending major thirds and minor thirds. We tend to think, and I do encourage you to think, that you get to do one or the other. You get A or B. Those are your 2 choices in music. You get a major tonality or a minor tonality. And yeah, you can do some modal mixture. But, as I evolved as a musician, especially over the last few years, and as I studied Indian music and as I played around more with blues and stuff like that, I realized the thirds are versatile. The third, there's a whole playground there between the minor third and the major third. You can have movable thirds that only work on the way up, and you can have thirds that work in certain approaches on the way down, and you can really have fun with it. I'm realizing there's a lot more potential there than I initially realized. So it is something that I'm looking forward to doing a lesson on one day. Like, how do you use both thirds? Because for me, it just seemed like oil and water. You can't mix them. But there's all these really good examples past just the common ones. Picardy third is a common one of mixing the thirds. But there's other stuff going on there. It's deep, and I need a little bit more time to digest it before I start trying to teach lessons on it. So Peter Wolf, inspired by your a cappella lesson, I have purchased Melodyne. Well, I hope they give me a kickback for that. This marvelous tool gives me the confidence that I can completely fake singing. Yes, that was the point of that. Well, the point of that lesson was like, listen, I said it in the song, my computer keeps my notes from sounding wrong. Like, if I ever need vocals on my song, my computer keeps my notes from sounding wrong. It's like, don't hold yourself back because you have these resources. I can't play the piano. And that doesn't mean, like, I still have piano on my tracks. I can't play the drums. I still program drums. I don't go, oh, I'm not good enough of a drummer to put my own drums on there. No, I know I'm not a good enough drummer. So that's why I fake it. I do fake drums because I want to make music. I don't care about the glamour of being a good drummer. I'm here to make music. That's my focus. So I'm glad that you got the lesson on that. A lot of people in the comments didn't. A lot of people kind of thought it was, me just crapping all over autotune and people that autotune. So you're asking, what do you do to record voice? What microphone? What processing do you like? Here's what I recommend. If you want to record your voice, I recommend you get a condenser microphone. I love the SM57s. Those are dynamic microphones. They record guitars, they record, acoustics and drums. They record everything. But when it comes to just voices, if you're primary going to do voice, I would get a condenser microphone, and I would spend over $200 on it. This is an Audix CX112A. I always forget. I think it's about $400, $300, and it is the greatest investment I ever made into the studio. It sounds like $1 million. I almost nearly put vocalists on this. It's got great, crisp, high end. So definitely work on thinking about getting yourself a nice condenser microphone. Processing. My processing chain is pretty simple. It basically is this. I'll see if I can show it to you. This is not going to be the best example, but right now I've got this live voice going, right? You can see basically that as I'm talking, this is the signal I'm going through. I have a gate, so everything kind of disappears as it gets quiet. Listen. And then I have a compressor, and I have, I've probably got it heavily compressed on here. I've got a 2-to-1, which for, if you're doing like radio salesy stuff like this is a live stream, I'm fine with compression like that. Depending on what your thing is, that might be too much compression. It might not be enough. I keep the attack pretty quick. So, healthy amount of compression. Every time I'm talking, my voice is getting compressed. I'm not just compressing like the peaks. I'm compressing everything. It's just what I do. And I like the way it makes my voice sound. Then I equalize it. So for my voice personally, let's see if you can hear the difference here. I'm going to turn off my equalizer, okay? That's without the equalizer. And this is without the compressor, okay? So I have to get really close now, I think. So no compressor, back with the compressor, back with the equalizer, and I've got a limiter on there as well. But I think the equalizer is magic. All the equalizer is doing is getting rid of this low stuff. There's this boxy frequency in this room or just in my voice that by carving it out, I think it just makes things sound much clearer. So this to me sounds like cardboard boxy, and this to me sounds like radio AM in the gold time evening hours, if that makes any sense. So you get the idea. It's all about compression and equalization. That is the holy trinity. That's what you really want to be working through. Compression and equalization, more important than anything else, in my opinion. Also, when it comes to recording vocals, I would recommend, if you are an amateur hobbyist like myself, I would really recommend, and by that I mean like you don't have a studio where like it's pristine quality. Invest in iZotope's RX7 or RX8, which is noise removal software, and it means that, for my entire course, the furnace is blaring, air conditioning, there's ambulances outside. Every single track I had to run through iZotope's RX7, get those audio glitches out of there, because I want people to have a nice non-distracting lesson, and that is like a lifesaver. I wouldn't have been able to produce the course I wanted to produce with the quality if I didn't have that piece of software. So it might literally be the most valuable piece of software that I've ever purchased is RX7. I'll write it in here so you can see again. It is by iZotope. Really black magic stuff. I cannot believe that it works. iZotope RX7 or RX8. Of course, because it is, or 'tis, the season, you are going to find this on sale for right now. So the specific thing I use is the Spectral Denoiser, and that just literally deletes all of the furnace sounds and the background ambience. It's incredible. Really, 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 really great stuff. So thanks for the question, Peter, and I see you are in the chat. Yes, excellent. So I hope that helps out. All right, moving on. Jay Gamer is asking, Jake, I was noodling on my guitar last month. That's good. And you came up with the following chord progression. You think it sounds awfully familiar. Now, for this chord progression, I am going to change tones because I can already tell that for what I'm doing, or for what he's talking about, that's not the tone we want. So let's put on some twang guitar here. That's a twang guitar. And back to Jay's question. He's saying he wrote this chord progression, D, F sharp, G, and then repeats, D, G, all right? And he's saying the complementary B section, E minor, A major, right? And he's asking, why does this sound like the Beatles? Well, there's a few things I could think about with this, Jay. First off, it could possibly not sound like the Beatles, right? Well, this is like exactly why. Imagine if I switched back to this tone over here. Does this sound like the Beatles if I play those same chords? Right, let's listen to those same chords. Let's find them really like something like this. You had D, right? This doesn't quite sound like the Beatles for me. This sounds like something I could imagine, like, I don't know, I'm thinking of like Miley Cyrus singing like a ballad kind of, no, you're fun, you come back around, or, Ariana Grande or something like that. So, I mean, the if it sounds like a Beatles song, it might be because of the way you were playing it, right? This is a big thing. Some chord progressions don't inherently have genres attached to them. So I would be really tempted to hear the way you're playing those chords to give them that Beatles sound. But when I see those three chords, I want to strum it like 8 days a week. And now, and I can't think of a Beatles song. It sings like this, a nice little oldies jam. I mean, that would sound great, that kind of style of thing. But there's another element here. There is a chord progression here that is very Beatlesy, and it's very specifically Beatlesy. But just the tonal center's a little weird. E minor to A. We already talked about E minor to A today, right? When we were talking about Pink Floydian stuff. But Norwegian Wood, This Bird Has Flown, has a wonderful section in asked me to play and she told me to sit anywhere. Just E minor to A. So I don't know, maybe your brain was kind of picking up on a little bit of that E minor to A section from Norwegian Wood. That might be it. A lot of times when we hear something and we're like, this sounds like that band, it's because you're literally picking up on the exact same chords. And it's a little bit of perfect pitch catching. It's a little bit of like pitch relativity where your brain is recognizing, hey, this is the same chord progression and the exact same key. So let's see here. So I'm checking back at the chat, and it looks like Jared is saying your compression setting has 15 dB of gain, and then the compressor cuts loud transients and reduces dynamic range. So that's where the amplification is coming from. So Jared, you're talking about the makeup gain. Yeah, so here's the deal. When you do a compressor, when you do have compression, there is the makeup gain here. So basically, it's basically just the volume on it afterward. And this is adjustable. So yeah, it compresses things. It evens out the dynamic range. So instead of, like we described last time, right? There's less bigs, ups, and downs. But that makeup gain means it's all louder now. That is an aspect that I forgot. But here's an important thing, Jared, and this is one of those things that took me forever to figure out. Maybe you probably already know this, but in Ableton, if you open up a compressor, it has makeup gain automatically on. That's what this thing is. So for like the first 4 years of me producing music, I used to turn the threshold down, and I thought that's what compressors did. I thought compressors make things louder. Compressors don't make things louder, all right? Compressors make things quieter. But in this setting, as I'm turning the compressor on, it's automatically giving me makeup gain. It's saying, well, we know that you're making things quiet, so let's just boost it up for you, which I think is crazy to put as the default setting, and it had me completely befuddled for many, many, many years. So I was like charging people for production, and I didn't even know this basic thing. So yeah, Jared, that is absolutely true. It's complex stuff, and there's so many deep topics into compression. I try not to go that deep with it. I try to just know just as much as I need to know, and not much more after that. So, Bob Kelly, I hope you had that same question as Jay, so I hope that answers there for you. Greek is asking, what are some ways to contrast between the chorus, verse, and the pre-chorus? Thank you. So this is another thing that I go into pretty good detail. I have 2 videos on song structure and song sections in my course. So I encourage you to not skip to those videos, Greek, but I certainly encourage you to check out those videos, all right? And I guess what I could tell you more directly, instead of just using that as a cop-out, I hate saying that, oh, just watch the course. That's a lame answer. So, I mean, long story short, a verse and a chorus have to contrast somehow, all right? But let's say that they don't contrast with the chords. Let's say the chords are the same way the whole thing, right? So let's say I'm just doing a D major chord, right? Here's my verse, it's just a D. And this is my verse, right? You're singing your verse and something's fine and nobody knows what the time has been. This is what you got, right? Still a verse section now, and sooner or later you're gonna need a chorus. Let's say you didn't even want to change chords, right? Like, now imagine drums come in, right? I have my chorus section right now. So I don't even need to change the chords. I just need to have something singable. I got my chorus written right here and now. And then you go back to your verse, and your verse is, I can, maybe the drums go away again, they dip back down. So, you know what I mean? Like, you just have to have contrast, something that really is dynamic, A and B, back and forth. For pre-choruses, I think a great suggestion for pre-choruses, so let's say this is my verse, and I want to get back to D, right? So I think the best thing you can do is just avoid that D chord, avoid your tonic. So if I want to kind of, now I know that I want to get somewhere. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Yay! Oh, my apologies, ladies and gentlemen. That was the earlier trumpet line. If you weren't here for that before, then you're probably really surprised. Anyways, where was I? I had this D major, I had this A, right? And then you've got your G. And listen to how if I stay on a G, hanging out here, it makes me want to come back to D, right? So that pre-chorus, avoiding the D chord for too long, really helps you kind of crash back into a chorus for a pre-chorus. If you don't want to do that, you can use like a dynamic thing, build-ups, crescendos, sonic, what do I want to call it? Sonic cadence, where you're kind of sucking all the energy out of the room. So yeah, I see the. Oh, yeah, I apologize to the chat. I'm sure some of the chat has no clue what that music is from, but those who are here at the beginning of the chat or the stream definitely very aware, so it's an Easter egg just for you. Sorry, yeah. Sorry about that, but I think it was well worth it. So, Greek, I hope that answers your question. I will have more in my course. Long story short, though, Greek, to answer just a little bit more in detail, it's about like the emotions, it's about the you need a break from a chorus. You can't just be singing and fist pumping the whole time. You need something to kind of, either lead you into that or kind of let you decompress out of that. And it's about just listening to your stuff and finding out when does it get annoying? When does it get sick? When does it get like nauseating? When does it get too much? And if you can spot those moments, then you need a thing. You need a pre-chorus. You need a verse. You need a post-verse. You need something because something's wrong. Something structurally is wrong. So. Yes. Contrast the verse with the trumpet break. Excellent advice. Yeah, well, if you really, that's one of those high-level secrets, Concoos. We shouldn't be, that's for like the next course, I don't know if you guys are ready for that, the trumpet break. Very advanced stuff. It can go wrong very quickly. Victor Brickhout is asking, hey, Jake, I love your Riffing with the Modes 6 video. So do I. I think that is a hilarious video. However, between writing the chords and melody, the arrangement, doing all the production magic, trying to mix and then master, it's just too much for me and I can't finish a song. I really like the idea of finishing a song and going through the whole process above. Do you have any tips to make this simpler so that I could actually learn the process by doing and then add complexity later? I won't be able to make it to the live stream. I apologize. It's all good. So I'm not and I'm just going to answer your question. All right, Victor. So here's the deal. How do you do it? How do you deal with this fact that it's too much? I understand that it's too much. Understand, though, that I've been doing this a very long time. I started making music on the computer like 15 years ago. Okay, so I've got 15 years of experience doing this. I wish you could hear, I could probably pull up some of the tracks. It would take me a long time to find them. But I wish you could hear the tracks that I started with and how bad they sound. They didn't sound like the songs I played you. It took me 15 years of experience to get that good. So don't worry so much about the production magic. Worry more about the arrangement. Worry more about, I've got a chorus, a pre-chorus, a bridge section. It sounds good enough where if I posted this on some indie forum, people would like it for its raw appeal. That's a bigger thing to figure out. Ultimately, you've got to decide a really important thing here. This is a really big decision that I encourage pretty much everybody to make up. Are you going to be a production person or not? Are you going to get good at producing or not? And just decide yes or no, because you're going to save yourself so much stress if the answer is just no. That means you can write, you can record, you can still buy Ableton, you can still get good enough at it to record and edit, but it means that you don't have to worry about all that crap about mixing and panning and compression and multi-band dynamics. Leave that to somebody who loves doing that. Leave that to somebody who's good at that. Leave that to the pros that are good at that. And that way you're freed up to really excel at what you want to do, which is write or compose or play or whatever it is. But if if you're going to choose to produce, then just kind of draw the line really quickly. Just say, okay, this is how good I need to get. I need to get good enough to record myself. Or if your goal is like mine, to become really great at producing, just expect that it's going to take a long time. I don't know any shortcut for this. Producing is one of those really... I don't know how to teach producing. It's so weird. It goes into so many parts of my brain that I don't know how to describe and that I don't have experience with instructing. And it takes everything I've got. When I'm actually producing with clients and making music, it takes every music skill I have. And then it takes all these other skills that I didn't need from music, like social skills, organization skills, deadline, working under pressure. All these things are part of being a producer. So just kind of really crystallize your intent with why you are learning to produce. For most of you, I think all you're going to need to learn to do is hit record, compress something, add reverb, that's it. Hand it off to somebody, pay $10 for them to mix it, and now you've got a great product. But, you could save yourself years of practice just by saying, I'm not going to be a mixer. I know that personally, in the grand scheme of things, I will never be a mixing engineer. I'm never going to be that good. I've already resigned myself to that. So, I could still be a producer, though. So, why not just give it to the mixing engineer? Why not, when it comes to that time of the song, send it to the guy who really likes mixing, who loves an audiophile who's got 5 different monitors. I'm going to send my track to them and let them do the work that they're really good at. And then, or mastering. I don't know about mastering. Why would I spend all this time learning all that and practicing all that when it's like, I could be writing good music? That's what I want to get good at. So leave the the professional work to the professionals when you can, and only develop the skills you need to be making art. That's why you should be recording, is getting your stuff out there. My production magic is because I want to make stuff sound good on YouTube. I think it's fun to demonstrate. I know there's a lot of people that are at that level in their production where they can actually benefit from those things, but I don't expect the beginning amateur composer to be able to watch those videos and recreate those, because I swear to you, the mixes I made for Riffing with Modes number 6, if you played me those mixes 2 years ago, I would have been like, wow, that sounds really good. I can't mix that well. That's 2 years ago. Obviously, if I play the mixes from 15 years ago, it's a giant improvement. So, it is a very, very slow process, and I don't know how anybody is supposed to learn it other than through raw experience. You got to make a lot of stuff. So, Victor, my solution is just get the work done. Don't worry if it sounds good. Just get through the important stuff of writing and arranging. Arranging is the big one, making sure you have parts that function together, make sure that everything kind of is cohesive, make sure that things aren't clashing, make sure the structure's there, make sure the energy is there, make sure that it doesn't get boring. Mads Barford, hello, Jake. When I'm writing a section in minor and modulate to a major key, I often find that the change doesn't work because it's too drastic. I typically end up modulating to another minor key instead. Can you help me out? Great question. Minor to major can be really, so A minor, right? Here's A minor. A minor. So I'm just in the key of A minor, right? And then the idea is, what if I modulate to A major? Right? Isn't that too happy? It is to me. For most use cases, I think it's too happy. I think it's very, very rare when you can get away with that. But what if you immediately follow it up? So let's go back to minor. Let's get used to minor again. So let's go to A major, but then to E minor, right? Really quick appearance. So what I'm kind of doing is I modulated to more of like an A Dorian kind of thing, you know what I mean? I've got my A major here. Or no, more like an A Mixolydian thing, I guess, because I've got my minor 5. So I've kind of darkened it up. I didn't go into A major, right? I didn't go into A major to E major. I went into A major to E minor. And the minor 5 chord is going to be that Mixolydian flavor, that really kind of sad sound. So, you'd think about just not actually going into full major. But the other thing I would recommend you do is remember to like modulate into relative major sounds great. So if I'm in A minor, it sounds so good and it doesn't sound cheesy to go to C major. Right? So kind of bringing in that C major as opposed to modulating to a different major key, just relatively shifting, going from the relative key at A minor to the relative key of C major. I would highly suggest doing that kind of stuff. But look for these kind of changes. Minor to major is pretty weird. I think it's more often I hear major changes to minor changes, but then they'll often bring it back. And if you listen to older classical etudes, it does happen quite a bit. So I get it, though. To me, it's just too drastic of a change. So if you don't like that change, Mads, neither do I. That's why I don't do it that often. It's very, very rare. And when I do, it's like a Picardy third. It just shows up to be like, hey, look, here I am. And then it just goes right away. It's like a little wave and then off it goes. So, I'm with you. Okay. That's why, it doesn't show up that often, because it's just a little too much, Tyler is saying his question is related to drum tracks. I can usually get a decent arrangement of guitar parts to form a song, but of course every good rock song has drums. I'm not a drummer, but I have some plugins to create MIDI drum tracks. Woo! The problem is it sounds quite bland and boring and artificial. I was wondering if you have any advice for creating MIDI drum tracks that fit with whatever guitar parts I write. Sure, let's write some drums here really quick, all right? And I'll explain to you how I keep them from sounding insanely robotic, because it does sound robotic. That's a real thing. So let's grab a preset kit here. We'll do something like this. And we'll record a guitar part. I have no idea what's going to happen when I hit record, but that's always the fun of it. So let's see here. I click. Let's see here. Okay, so see how nice that tone sounds? God, it's just, I mean, it's got the right amount of effects on it. It's got the right amount of grit on it. Sounds really just lovely. I mean, this is like, good tones are just instant songs. Like, this would be so easy to turn into a song. Just that. Okay, so we're gonna do like a boom, boom, down, boom, boom, we're gonna do like a tom groove. I don't even know, that might sound really bad. Oh, this is a good example because we're trying to make drums sound good. So yeah, like this might be actually a perfect example because tom grooves usually sound like garbage on fake drums. So where is, let's see here. Here we go. Turn that up a little bit. So what was that? And where is my quarter note? 1 and boom, boom. It looks like my timing was not too accurate. Well, that's all right. We're just going to keep going through here. And 2 and a 3 and 4. And my tom groove is probably going to suck because I'm not a drummer. And yeah, when you're not a drummer, I actually don't know what the right thing to do a tom groove would be. But let's just try it anyways. Boom, boom. Maybe just steady. Dum, 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 dum. Yeah, so here's the deal, okay? Let's listen to how bad this tom groove sound. And actually, I'm going to re-record these guitars because, like, or you know what it might be? It might be because I didn't feel like I was that out of time. It just might be because I have this little latency thing going on. So let's move this back a little bit and maybe... Oops. Oh, we'll just keep it. We'll just keep it as is. So let's listen to how bad and fake our drums sound right now. Yeah, I think those sound bad. I think they sound fake. Right? So here's the first thing we can do, all right? These are all velocities in here. We're seeing how loud they are down here. So the first thing I can do is add in some accents that make sense. With this tom groove, dom, 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 dom. The drummer doesn't play like that. You probably dom, 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 dom. You would probably be accenting the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all the offbeats, the ands. That's what these ones are here. And I'm going to grab all of these, and then I'm going to reduce the volume of them just a little bit like this. And I'm going to listen to that instead. Right? And then I'm going to maybe turn these ones down a little bit. Those are my snare hits because I think they were unnecessarily loud. And then here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to take this entire thing, and I don't know what DAW you're on, and who am I responding to again? This is Tyler. Tyler, I don't know what DAW you're on, so I don't know if you'll be able to do this, but in Reason at least, you can grab these notes, and you can do something like this. You can randomize just a few ticks, just like a very, very small amount. It's going to push it just off a little bit, so we'll randomize it just a little bit, and it basically moves it off the grid. It gives a little humanity, just a little bit of, like, mistake, you know, a little bit so it actually sounds like a person played it, maybe. And I definitely, I don't know, I have to add this in. I hear the dong, dong. I hear these like other tom hits in there, so let me just put those in because I want to put them in. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Oh, I guess that's my only other tom. Right there. Like that. Oh, Tyler, you're in the chat. Awesome. Cool. So, Reaper should have these abilities. Pretty much every DAW has these ideas of like randomization. That's the other thing I was going to show you here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to highlight all these notes, and then I'm going to go to the velocities. Velocity is how loud something is. And right here, randomize. Let's randomize it by like 10%. And now I've got even, oops, I did fixed velocity. So here's randomizing it by 10%. And now if we just listen to it all on its own, let's listen to just the drums here. So in my experience, the answer, Tyler, is going to be lots of what happened there? That was not right. The answer is going to be lots of individualized accenting. It's very tedious, but you should be, in my experience, the best results I've had are where I'm writing my accent patterns. I'm like, this is the accent pattern I want. I need to put it in there. But you know, it's just, I'm spoiled. I have a really good drummer I get to work with. And if you have the opportunity to work with a real drummer, this just feels like a waste of time. However, the reason I know this is because, you know, 90% of the time I can't just bug my drummer to do something silly like this or, you know, waste somebody's time. It's just for something, you know, for this. If I wanted to work with this, I wouldn't call up a drummer to work on this. I just keep working on it right now. And I want it to sound good. And occasionally it sounds good enough where I can release it like that and I don't feel bad about it. So, it's going to be a lot of manual work. And you know what else helps is knowing to play the drums. Like I said, I can't program a good tom groove because I don't know a good tom groove. If I played a bunch of drums, then I have a vocabulary of 15 tom grooves and I know exactly what drum is hit, on what beat it's hit, what accents I normally play, right? So when you don't have that language, when you don't have that vocabulary, obviously it's going to be a little bit harder to write those instruments. So this goes like this for everything you're programming. It's going to be easier to program an accurate representation of that instrument if you know that instrument. You want to program violins? Well, know a little bit about the violin. What notes are possible? What notes are not possible? You want to program the piano? Well, you better not be playing more than 10 notes at the same time, right? People only have 10 fingers traditionally. So it helps to really know that instrument, and then it helps emulate that instrument because you're kind of doing things that those performers need to do. Now, when you don't do that, you can end up with really cool stuff that nobody's ever done before because you can, you know, obviously break all those rules and do things that piano players can't do because you programmed it. So, you know, if you're trying to emulate the instrument, you should be learning as much about that instrument as you can. If you're trying to just have fun, then just have fun and go crazy with it, and don't let that stop you from, you know, programming in impossible music. Impossible music is a lot of fun. So yes, there is stuff on the drums. So really quick, I mean, I'll post a thing on Patreon here soon as the course is available. But just to kind of recap, you can see everything that's in the course is right here. We've got the musical alphabet, the music staff. I'll also be posting a video on YouTube that basically says, listen, I know that some of you can't afford this lesson or don't want to buy it for whatever reasons. So if you just want to learn it on your own, here's what you got to learn. Like literally, if you can learn these things, then you're going to know what's at the end of the course. It's just, I think I've taught them in a very efficient manner. Musical alphabet, music staff, the fretboard, major scale, rhythm, basics, triplets, meter, time signature, audiation, melody, key signature, scale degrees, triads. You can read it all on your own. You can pause it here. And writing drum parts. It's a fairly short video. I think it's only like 6 to 8 minutes long, but I crammed a lot of good information in that on making that video. So I did try to keep those videos as quick as possible. They're edited as tightly as I can. I'm not trying to waste anybody's time in that course. I really want people to walk out of it on the other side and be like, I can compose. I get it. So you'll all have to let me know how it works for you. Bob Kelly. My process is I often start with some lyrics, and I always have a melody that goes off in my head. I'll play the melody on guitar, keyboards, but then I need to arrange it. So I'll often look at the notes in a measure and conditionally try a chord that contains the notes of the melody. This is what I do. I usually start with a melody, and then I find chords for it. These end up with some pretty basic progressions. Yeah, that happens a lot to me too. However, which I can then tweak with color tones or bass line movements. I like that process. Bob, I like that process a lot. The only thing I would say is that process gets better when you are thinking, when your bag of chords grows, right? When you've got a melody in your head and you start thinking, oh, I'm going to add chords to this. We kind of traditionally go to the 1, 4, 5. We go to the diatonic chords. But the more familiar you are with those other chords, like the secondary dominants and the borrowed chords and weird ones that are even outside of that, you kind of just like, you have a tendency to find more interesting progressions because you're experimenting with different options. Also, when you're hearing, a lot of times, you probably get this, Bob, where you're hearing a melody and you already know the chord. You're like, oh, okay, that's the tonic. Like, I'm clearly singing over the tonic and it clearly goes to the 4. But the more you expose yourself to weird chords, the more you expose yourself to borrowed chords and secondary dominants, the more you're able to hear those. The more you're able to hear, like, oh, I can tell it's going from the 5 to the 5 of 5, you know what I mean? Or, you know, in the other way. So those kind of things don't happen very easily unless you're exposed to that stuff or unless you're studying it. And then once you are exposed to it, you start hearing that music instead. As you're hearing a melody, you're hearing the chords. I think a good example is the a cappella song I just posted. Well, not just posted. That was like 3 months ago now. That song, most of the chords I could hear in my head. I could hear that there was going to be some of those diminished passing tones. I could hear that there was going to be some stuff. I just didn't know where. I didn't know 100%. And it wasn't until I got on my guitar, I was like, what chord am I hearing? Is it that? Oh, it's this chord, So being able to hear those chords, they were somewhere in my database, but I wasn't able to immediately pull them up. It wasn't as simple as just saying, oh, there's the 4 chord. So I like your process, and I just want to encourage you to, keep working with that process because it grows. Another process for coming up with an arrangement, a lot of times I'll write chord progressions first, and then come up with a melody after that. So let's listen to what we just made here. So we're like some kind of A. So here's a melody. Right. So, that simple little phrase there. And, because here the chord's kind of inspired, and I'm kind of thinking something goes along with it. Here, I don't even have a chord, really. I have just a riff. So a lot of times I like to work with the chord progression, find the natural chord tones in that chord progression, and then maybe try to draw melodies between that. So a lot of times the chord progression inspires the melody first. I would also encourage you, one other thing, Bob, is to just try to start with a lyric and then let that dictate the melody, which then dictates the chord itself. So actually having a phrase, just a lyric, and then not even having a melody, but just letting that lyric dictate the melody. Certain words are going to want to stretch out. Certain words are going to want to have a certain rhythm. Certain words are going to want to, feel a certain way. So letting that dictate the rhythm of your actual melody is a fun little way to kind of, it works a different side of the brain for me personally. So, Mateus is asking, don't know if I'm still on time. Yes, you are, Mateus. You still got it in on time. How can we judge from a third perspective our own work? A lot of times I think my improvisations are not what I want, but my professor says they said that it sounds good. Let's see, so you can read it too. How to be able to abandon this critique mind and enjoy our work. Do you ever feel like that? Cheers, man. Mateus, I really like this question. This is such a good question. I am very into this kind of stuff, self-analysis and reflection and stuff like that. Here's what I think. How can we judge from a third perspective our own work? I do think you should be judging from a third perspective your work. I am extremely critical of my own music. I am constantly listening to it and finding things that I think suck, things that I hate, things that are wrong, mistakes, things that don't work. It's every second I'm listening to my own songs. That said, I really love my own music. I am one of those people that is absolutely guilty of basking in the glory of finishing a project and listening to it and being like, listen to how good that sounds. But I'm still aware of every flaw in it because I want the next one to sound better. I don't want to not fix those things. I want to be even more enthralled and more appreciative of my next composition. So I'm not, I think it's healthy because I'm not beating myself up. I'm not overly criticizing myself. I'm finding legitimate flaws. I think they're all legitimate. When I hear, if I do it with my favorite bands, my favorite bands, I can hear things where I think that sucked, So if I can hear it in their music, I better be able to hear it in my music. So here's I've worked on that for quite a bit. I don't know if it's as easy for everybody else to find that perspective, but working on your ego and being able to manage your ego can be a hard thing. It really helps out if you have a trusted confidant, a trusted music coach. You say you have a professor you're going to work with. So I want to say when it comes with my own students, I like to be honest as often as possible. I believe in honesty. I believe in transparency. But the truth of the matter is, there's sometimes where you just can't be honest. And there's sometimes where, let's put it this way. There's a lot of times when my student's playing something and they screw it up and I'm still saying good job because I didn't mean you did a good job. I didn't mean, you're playing the song correctly. No, you screwed it up 6 times in a row. But the 7th time you fixed the mistake that I wanted you to fix. So I say good job because that was a good job. That's what we were looking for. That was the temporary goal. Your song still sucks. You're still really bad at performing. You're not on time, but you did a good job. You improved. So when I say good job to my student, that's what I mean. And they usually understand that. I kind of get that across the point when they look at me when I'm like, They're like, what do you mean good job? When they actually screwed up, I'm like, that's not, like, I saw the improvement. Here's what you were doing, and look what you're doing now. So if your professor is saying good job, he might be saying, like, he sees the improvement in that. He might not just be, slathering praise on you and saying, there's two ways to do it. He might be acting in that fashion. But there's another thing where if you've got a student who's really good, like unnaturally good, like, I hate to say this, but like, there is a time to just maybe back off on your praise a little bit. I mean, you don't retract it, you don't withhold it, but there are people that are too good too fast can get egos that get out of control, and they are never going to run into the challenge aspect of things. So I don't know the relationship between you and your professor. That's what I'm trying to say. If you really trust their feedback, then talk to them and be like, when you say my work is good, are you judging it on my improvement, or are you saying it is good compared to a professional soloist? Because that's two different things. Also, find a friend that will be honest with you. I have musical friends that will not BS me. My two good musical partners will just straight up tell me, that my stuff sucks if it sucks. And more importantly, they'll tell me if I ripped something off on accident when I didn't realize it. So it's really helpful to have people that don't, they're not trying to, appease you or, be subsequent or obsequious in any way. They're just trying to, give you good feedback. And I have that relation with some of my students, but the truth is that some students are just too fragile for that. That's just the truth of it. So certain students, especially younger ones, just can't handle real, honest feedback. And you kind of have to give them that kind of thumbs up until they're in a spot where they can handle real feedback. Until then, you're just trying to get them to just develop on their own. So I'm not saying that you're in that position, Matthias. I highly doubt it. But I can't answer that. It's a real problem. Figuring out how do you get honest feedback. And to be completely honest with you, I told you about being honest. It's been hard for me because starting YouTube, I get these messages that are just so ridiculously nice. And they say things like, you're the greatest guitar teacher ever, and you're the greatest teacher in the world, you're the incredible composer. And so it's like, that's nice. I really enjoy those messages. But if I really believed to my heart of hearts, all these people are saying I'm the best. If I took that to heart and decided to take that to heart, it would mean that I never would try to get better. It would mean that I would think, well, here, okay, boom, did it. I'm the best now. I can retire and be, happy and just, get drunk every day. Like that would be, so that's the problem with taking that kind of feedback too much to heart. Like I said, I appreciate those comments, and I think I'm a good teacher. I do. But when somebody says you're the best singer I've ever seen, and you hear that 100 times a day, I mean, imagine what Hollywood celebrities must be like. This is what I think of, after I'm no Hollywood celebrity, but it does affect you, when people are all around you saying a thing about you, and then all of a sudden, like, how are you supposed to, when somebody says, oh, you actually suck? And everybody was afraid to tell you suck. This is a real thing. So I feel for you because I'm in the same spot, Matthias. Hopefully you can just work this through with your professor. Hopefully you've got friends. You can send it to me, and I am happy to give you honest feedback. I will give you 100% honest feedback of what I think of your improvisation, and I'll give it just as honest as my own stuff. You know what I mean? I think that's just that's what I do. I would like to do that, and so. All right, so that answers all of the questions that were submitted. So take a look back in the chat. I don't see too many other things in here. So yeah, Luther, I'm not sure exactly what examples you're talking about, but I'm going to probably say, yeah, it's probably in the course. So what you're going to need to know is that either tomorrow or the following day, I will post a link on how you can access the course. It's going to be a link that you'll hopefully keep to yourselves, and you can name whatever price you want for it, and you'll be able to access it through the course. The site's a little rough right now. The course should be great. The course should be 100% functional, but the website itself is going to be a little funky for another week. I'm going to transition over to another domain, some stuff like that. So I will keep you posted in the next few days. I'm very, very excited about this. And then I've got a video for YouTube. The Locrian video will come out before Christmas. I'll probably write a Christmas song this year. Nobody's going to like it. I'm just letting you know right now. Nobody wants the Christmas song I'm about to unleash on you. So that is coming up in the not so distant future. So yeah, we're going to probably wrap things up here in the not so distant, or in just a little bit here. So unless you have any questions. So if you do have any questions, you can answer them now. I see John Hooper's asking about Trump. I don't know what that has to do with anything I talked about. Sign of a great teacher, your own music, your biggest critic. It's just careful more. I don't want people to be overly critical, and like, you shouldn't be overly critical of yourself. You need to do both. You need to be really critical of yourself and also really confident. You need to be just honest. If you're just honest with yourself and be like, okay, I did these things really good, and I should be proud of that, and I should be confident in these things because I can clearly do them, but I did these things really bad, and I need to improve on them. There's no negative in that. There's no downside in that. But for some people, you tell them the downside, and it's just too, like, they just haven't built up the whatever it takes to deal with any any bad news. Talented people are the worst with this. Talented people, it comes so easy to them that when you tell them they can't do something, or they're doing that, you tell them they need to work at it, they really struggle with it. So it just takes a little bit of work. So let's see here. Yeah, Locrian video's coming out. Wait, I see somebody's asking about the Locrian Christmas song. No, Peter Wolf, it's not going to be a Locrian Christmas song. I was thinking about doing, here's a little funny little thing I want you all to try to do. Try to, Jingle Bells is set up in 4, right? And jingle bells, jingle all the way, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's your little practice tonight to go crazy. Try to clap every 3 beats. So I'm doing like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, right? I'm clapping every 4. What if you clapped every 3 beats? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, or I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. What if you clap that and then sing Jingle Bells? So like, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Really weird. It's really hard. It's really difficult. It got stuck in my head the other day, and now I'm going to pass that little earworm practice on to you. Have fun with that one, all right? The other one was going to be, I was thinking either doing rhythmically offset Jingle Bells, or the other one is literally, it's going to be called A Christmas Song That No One Wants to Hear. And, well, it's a Christmas song that no one wants to hear. So that's going to be the idea. It's really going to be a beautiful Christmas song, though. I'm going to make it sound like a Christmas song, and that's the problem. Like, no one wants to hear that. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's a classic Jake Stupid song. I'm probably going to film a video. We'll see. We'll see if I can get it done by Christmas. I certainly hope I can. I've been working so hard. I've been working the longest hours I've ever worked in my life. And now that I'm done with the course, it's like, I almost feel like I have to keep this going. Like, what am I going to do now? So let's see here. Gustavo saying, I am working on improvising or improving my melody writing. I play bass. I go from rhythm, chords, bass line, and then try to write a melody, but I always fail to make it stand out. Gustavo, in that case, I am just going to ask you to do 2 things. Go on my Patreon page and search for melodies. I have a 3-part thing on melodies here on Patreon. You can watch all those videos. It's only on Patreon. And then wait a day or 2 for my course, and just wait till you get to that melody section, because I have a nice 10-minute rant on melodies, going through all the different tips and flavors, demonstration there. It is one of the very few videos that isn't tons of animations. Well, not animations. You know my graphics. I call those, I'll just call them graphics. But I do think it's a very good lesson after watching it. I think it should really get the point across of melody making. So I hope that helps, Gustavo. No bro country this Christmas, John Hopkins. Yeah, Jared, I'm glad that you get what I'm doing here with this Christmas song. Yeah, I'm doing a Christmas song for that reason only. Like, I don't want to spoil it for you because I think it's so funny. I wrote the lyrics and I looked at the chords and I started singing it. I literally burst out in laughter. Like, it will be one of the dumbest things I've ever published on Signals. I think it's just funny, though, and I think you'll get a kick out of the chords, and I think it's like, I don't know. It's just, I want to make it. That's what I want to do. I've worked so hard on this course. I haven't made music. I want to make music, and I want to make something really silly, and I think it's going to be a silly, fun song. So I hope everybody enjoys it. Glenn King, you submitted a question on the email. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. I asked about turnarounds rather than using a standard... Glenn, how about if you sent it to me on Patreon or if you sent it to on email? I don't remember that question. So, Glenn, can you do this for me? Can you please send me that question again in my Patreon email inbox? And then I can just respond to you directly. I'll get you a nice response directly. And that way, because I don't recall and I'm kind of a little confused. Looks like you're just looking for different kind of turnarounds. So, yeah, I can answer that in my Patreon in message. So, ask me that there. We'll get it for you. Luther's asking, what do you do when you hit a plateau in your journey? How to get out of it? What do you do? Well, you don't keep thinking about that you're in a plateau. That's for sure. You don't keep like focusing on that. That'll just keep you there longer. But that's just things. I mean, and there's very few charts that just do this, right? Most charts do this, and then they do this, and then they do this, and then they do this. And, most stable charts do. The chart that just goes like this and then this, that's a very bad chart. You don't want that. So just expect this. This is just part of the world. This is part of life. This is part of everything, as you're going to take 2 steps backward and then 1 step forward. 2 steps forward and then 1 step backward. Hopefully that's the way it works. But yeah, it happens. And then I do suggest that you try to stretch out, especially if you're not getting any progress. Like, let's say there's a song you're trying to finish, or there's a skill you're trying to, and you're not making any progress. Just switch directions. Go do something else. Just completely change it. And go paint. Go write a book. Like, do anything that's like out of left field. You're trying to shake up the brain. Your brain is clearly in a moment of stagnation. It's clearly not getting new ideas. So it's about getting new ideas into your head. And that should at least, you might be surprised at how much of a difference that makes. Also, get a lot of sleep. In my opinion, I found out that a lot of my best progress was made when the times that I was getting a lot of sleep. When you don't get a lot of sleep, concepts don't get absorbed as easily. So. All right, folks. Well, I do believe that is going to wrap things up here for this evening. So just to make sure we've got a nice little outro here, I'm going to say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the Signals Music Podcast, coming at you live from the suburbs of Chicago, the warm suburbs of Chicago, might I add. I'm going to play Frisbee golf tomorrow. It's going to be so warm. That's my celebration. Jared's asking, what are my goals for 2021? Well, Jared, it's funny because I just finally started working on my, I finally finished my New Year's resolution, which is to finish the course, and it took me all the way until December. Signals goals for 2021. Oh boy. I'll tell you a little bit. I've got a lot. I know I'm not going to hit them all. That's fine. Totally cool with that. I'd like to have a podcast, a real official podcast. Beautiful studio, live music. You can play your instrument with the musician. I want to pay my guests to come out. I want to pay Adam Neely to come out for the first 3-hour podcast. We can jam. I want to pay Rick Beato to come out. I mean, this is like big dreams, but who knows? I mean, if this course actually does well for the public, I could actually do something like that, and it would be profitable. It would at least pay for itself, because I would have to pay. I mean, I did the math. I did my charts. It would be very expensive. Numbers that I've never seen before in my life. But hey, anything can happen if this works out. On top of that, I'd like to consider dabbling in other courses, drum courses. I'd like to maybe think about hiring Beardstank to do Signals drum lessons. I'd like to think about hiring Moog Lee to do Signals piano lessons. I definitely want to keep making videos, more YouTube videos. More free courses, I think, as long as, this course does well. I think I can make it like a living thing. So next year, maybe I can add to it. I can add a book to it next year. I'd like to finish the book version of this. I initially was going to write a book, and I did that for like 5 months, and I got a lot done, and it was not even close to being finished. And I completely got defeated, distraught, thought the course was never going to come out because the course was supposed to be the book was supposed to be part of it. So now that the course is done, maybe I go back to the book. There are all sorts of different ideas. But I have big dreams, and then, reality sinks in, and that's fine. I'm just course correct. Set a goal, expect to fail, and then along the way, you get all these bonuses. You get all these pit stops along the way, and you get all these destinations that you would have never hit unless you just aimed in that direction. So that's kind of my philosophy on most things, and that's going to be my philosophy on Signals Music going forward. I want to just really quickly say thank you. I finished this course, and I could not, I'm not being like faux positive here, I could not have done it unless I had people literally supporting me to make that course. So I am just in your debt. I am extremely grateful, and literally I would not exist in this current form without my students. I am made by my students. I'm going to get a little touchy-feely here on you. About a year ago to the day, I lost a really good friend of mine, a former student of mine. Like, the very first day I started teaching guitar lessons, this kid signed up. And then as he grew up, he became a friend of mine, and we became, really good musical partners. He ended up producing music at my, studio. And basically, at his funeral last year, I looked around and, there's dozens of people I love, dozens of awesome individuals who inspire me, that I've taught, that have worked with me, that we've made music with. And it's all because of one student. It's all because of a student and the other students that he brought there. Like, that's how I learned how to teach. I wasn't born how to teach. Like, I was a terrible teacher, but students taught me how to teach. Kids and adults of all sizes, like, let me do that. They are the ones that made me into who I am. And you are the current incarnation of that. It started off with just me being 17 and not knowing how to teach, 8-year-old Zoe how to play guitar, and here I am being like, oh, here's a Metallica riff, and I've been finally realizing, like, this isn't working. That's how it started, and now it's you guys saying, we're going to support this guy to make lessons for the entire world. And, when I had to set something up for my own livelihood, like, I don't want to live off of your generosity. I need to have something that I can actually sell, and that's what that course is. You guys, took care of that for me. So, once again, everything going forward is going to be built off of my students. And I am fully aware of that. I want you to at least give yourself the credit for it. And I want you to keep that in mind with anybody else you deal with that might act like they've done it all themselves. They didn't, especially when it comes to something like this, that you are the active participant in that. It takes two people to tango, It takes an audience to have a band. A band without an audience doesn't exist. And it's a kind of a mutual thing. So, that's my little Zen moment of peace for you all. But I do mean it all. I mean it 100% seriously. So, thank you all. Good night. Have a great one. Stay tuned on my website or on my Patreon so you can see all the information on when this course is actually going to get released. I do expect it in 1 or 2 days, so hang tight, and then you'll probably see me on YouTube here in the not so distant future. All right? So, take it easy. Once again, thank you.